Jean-Pierre Bemba, having spent 10 years in prison for crimes against humanity and war crimes and finally acquitted in June 2018, now claims more than 68 million euros in damages from International Criminal Court. It took less than 24 hours for the Togolese opposition to react after the adoption of the constitutional reform in Togo by parliament. The new law provides for the limitation to 2 the number of presidential terms, but also allows current President Faure Gnassingbé to run for the next polls in 2020 and 2025 and grants immunity for life to former presidents. The Gabonese striker Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang scored 3 times during the match of Arsenal against Valencia, winning by 4-2 on Thursday night at the Mastella Stadium, and consequently allows his team to reach the Europa League final 19 years later. These are our top stories. Stay tuned for more details in this newscast. In Mauritania, the list of candidates of the presidential election in order to succeed the President Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz, whose constitution does not allow a new term of office, is known. This Thursday, the Mauritanian Constitutional Council deliberated and 6 candidates are competing for the presidential election scheduled for the 22nd of June. Mohamed Ghazouani, Chief of Staff from 2008 to 2018 and Minister of Defense, was a favorite in the polls. He announced his presidential candidacy in March. Another candidate, but not the least, a former prime minister from 1992 to 1996. He returned to power from 2005 to 2007. He is supported by Tawassul, the Islamic Party. Biram Da Abe, human rights defender and leader of IRA, the anti-slavery movement, has his candidacy validated, just like that of Kane Hamidou Baba, who leads the movement Living Together. On the historical opposition side, it is Mohamed Ould Maouloud, president of the UFP and the Forum of the Opposition, which will represent this radical movement. And the last candidate, Mohamed Lamine El Wavi, an official of the Ministry of Finance, unknown to the general public, all the same managed to obtain the 100 sponsorships required. For the failed candidates, they have until Saturday to file an appeal. 4 years in prison for possession of bomb-making equipment, German Grant, suspected of terrorism, has just been sentenced by a Kenyan court. The man had already been sentenced to 9 years in prison for falsifying documents. This British citizen is accused by the Kenyan authorities for his connections with the militant group Al-Shabaab in East Africa. Converted to Islam, he was arrested in December 2011 in Mombasa in possession of chemicals, batteries, and switches likely to manufacture explosive devices, according to a trial expert. Sentenced to 9 years in prison in 2015, he was still serving his sentence for falsifying documents, including a false declaration of Kenyan nationality. German Grant would have joined the jihad at London Feltham Prison, the same as Richard Reid, the British who tried to blow up a Paris-Miami flight with an explosive hidden in his shoe in December 2001, had also converted to Islam. The prosecution also suspects him of cooperating with the British Samantha Lithwaite, widow of one of the perpetrators of the Islamic attacks in London in 2005 and wanted by the Kenyan police for terrorism. The bipartite meeting between members of the Gabonese parliament and those of the government aims at converging their actions to the benefit of the populations. Before the parliamentarians, Julien Kogebekale called for an inclusive dialogue based on consultation and exchange views for a roadmap to enable the government to provide appropriate solutions to address issues affecting the Gabonese population. According to the head of the Gabonese government, it will be necessary to listen to each other and provide explanation for the higher interest of the nation. In one word, to speak the truth. This meeting, which brings together parliamentarians and government members, should result in a platform which will have to serve as a roadmap for the elaboration of solid policies for the benefit of the populations. It took more than 24 hours for the Togolese opposition to react to the adoption by parliament of the constitutional reform in Togo. The new law limits the number of presidential terms to 2, but also allows current President Faure Gnassingbé to run for the next polls in 2020 and 2025 and grants immunity for life to former presidents. The opposition voices out through Brigitte Ajagbo-Johnson, coordinator of the opposition coalition in Togo. In a statement made on Thursday, she noted that with these reforms, the head of state will be above the law because he will be under the guise of immunity ad infinitum, to use their own expressions. According to Pascal Adoko, Deputy General Secretary of a party which is member of the coalition, Togo is in the presence of a National Assembly serving the regime. The Togolese opposition also notes that the reform, voted unanimously by the MPs present at the parliamentary session, evaded the formula under no circumstances, as provided for in the original Togolese constitution of 1992 and which the opposition had called forth in recent demonstrations. For now, no watchword. The coalition, however, requests to all their activists to go and register on the electoral list during the revision announced yesterday by the government for the period of May 16 to 18th. As a reminder, the new constitutional reforms allow President Faure Gnassingbé to run for the presidential election in 2020 and 2025, while he has already been in power for 14 years now. They also immunize former presidents from any prosecution at the end of their terms of office. Jean-Pierre Bemba claims over 68 million euros in damages from the International Criminal Court. Indeed, he had been accused of crimes against humanity and war crimes committed in the Central African Republic in 2002 and 2003. He was finally acquitted in June 2018 after spending 10 years in prison. Following his arrest, the court had his assets seized, in particular those in Portugal, Belgium, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. The former Congolese vice president is now accusing the court of having left his property to be abandoned, and he is calling for justice. The claim was argued yesterday, Thursday, May 9th, at a hearing before the International Criminal Court. This was his evening in a state of grace. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang greatly contributed to the qualification of Arsenal, who made it to the final of the Europa League by scoring a hat-trick on Thursday against Valencia during the semi-final second leg. While the opening of the score by Gamero at the 11th minute could have raised some doubts among the Gunners, the Gabonese striker did not let his teammate dither. He equalized 6 minutes later from a superb half volley. As he initiated the second Arsenal goal scored by Lacazette, his teammate, the Gabonese international footballer, then took advantage of a pass inspired by Maitland-Niles to give a definite advantage to his team by jumping to the first post at the 69th minute. Then the Panther of Gabon had the privilege to leave with the ball of the match by scoring a last goal in a close corner at the 19th minute. Already scorer in the first leg, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang now has 8 goals in the competition this season. The final is scheduled for May 29th against the Blues of Chelsea, their London rival, who pulled out their qualification in pain against Frankfurt at the end of penalty shootout. Jean-Pierre Bemba, having spent 10 years in prison for crimes against humanity and war crimes and finally acquitted in June 2018, now claims more than 68 million euros in damages from International Criminal Court. It took less than 24 hours for the Togolese opposition to react after the adoption of the constitutional reform in Togo by Parliament. The new law provides for the limitation to 2 the number of presidential terms, but also allows current President Faure Gnassingbé to run for the next polls in 2020 and 2025 and grants immunity for life to former presidents. The Gabonese striker Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang scored 3 times during the match of Arsenal against Valencia, winning by 4-2 on Thursday night at the Mastella Stadium, and consequently allows his team to reach the Europa League final 19 years later. That's all for our newscast today. Stay tuned on Gabon 24 for more news.